Metroid Prime Remastered takes a 20-year-old GameCube title and somehow makes it not only look, but feel like one of the most impressive games to come out on the Nintendo Switch. I never played the original Metroid Prime, which is very odd for me considering my love for both the GameCube and retro gaming in general. However, this gave me a unique opportunity to experience this as not only a remaster, but a new-to-me game. One thing that isn't new to me is the Metroid series. The 2D Metroid games are some of my favorite games that I've ever played, and honestly, I think that not wanting to spoil those was one of the reasons I never played the Prime series. That was a terrible, terrible misjudgment on my part. Beyond graphics, the first thing I notice is how familiar Prime feels to its 2D counterparts. Everything I loved about those are somehow still here: the atmosphere, the feeling, and especially the gameplay. That's important for a franchise that has a genre named after it, and this is a Metroidvania in every sense of the definition. So let's start with that. What makes a great Metroidvania is up for debate, but for me, there's two really important things: level design and overall gameplay. Metroid Prime nails both of them. The controls are great. It feels like a modern dual-stick FPS game with really no negatives to speak of, and with controls, that's what really matters. The less you have to think about them, the better. Like I said, I didn't play the original game, but I would have to assume that the controls was one of the biggest things they changed for the remaster, and it shows. As far as the actual gameplay, it's almost perfect. The platforming is solid, the combat is fun and challenging. Initially, I did think that the combat may become an issue because of an auto-lock button, but it felt perfectly in line with Samus's abilities, and it was still extremely challenging. That's because I realized the challenge isn't about how well you aim, it's more about when and, more importantly, with what ability you attack with. The abilities may be more of a star than Samus herself. Like most Metroid games, you start off with quite a few of them, but after the initial opening, you're left with only your arm cannon and a morph ball. Pretty quickly though, you will add all sorts of weapons, armor, and movement upgrades, from power bombs and grappling hooks to wave cannons and ice beams. They're not only super helpful in combat, but also in exploring the world of Talos 4, and what a world it is. Every area is unique, distinctive, and memorable, which is important considering you are going to be backtracking through all of them. And backtracking sounds like a bad thing, but with Metroid it isn't. When you visit an area the first time, you will come across objects or paths that you can't access due to lacking the tools necessary. The further into the game you get, the more weapons and abilities you unlock, and in turn, you can use those to access the areas you saw before. As soon as you unlock a new ability and realize what you can do with it, you will be running back to something you saw earlier, ready to see what lies beyond. That's where the amazing level design comes in. But while I think those are the most important, it's not really what is the most impressive about this remaster. When Nintendo announced and subsequently released Metroid Prime in the same day, I was excited, but what I expected was basically an in-house port of the GameCube version, especially after how they released GoldenEye last month in a very similar manner. What I didn't expect was a complete graphical overhaul, and a game that is easily one of the best looking on the Switch. It's not just the character models and enemies either. Every part of Metroid Prime's visuals look amazing, and it goes a long way in enhancing the atmosphere and the ambience. It makes the world come alive. The story, like the gameplay, is one of solitude that you piece together bit by bit from scanning the world around you. Clues of an extinct race and what happened to them can be found in statues, ruins, and sometimes ancient text etched into walls. This goes perfectly with the theme of the game. You can dive into as much or as little of the lore that you want. Metroid isn't really known for its story, and this one isn't amazing by any means, but it does give you enough to pique your curiosity of the series if it's something that you are into. Now, I know I've done nothing but gush over this game, but it isn't perfect. There was mainly one thing for me that kept it from being so, and that was the scanning visor. Now, as a mechanic, I have no problem with the visor. It's fine for finding secrets or collectibles or whatever, but it's just how much you actually use it in Metroid Prime. It feels like almost every single thing in the game is scannable, and it's not fun in the slightest to stop in every room and scan everything. Not to mention the rewards for doing so are basically nothing. In the grand scheme of things though, you can basically ignore the scanning, so it isn't the end of the world, but it is a nuisance that I would like to do without. Overall, Metroid Prime is one of the best games I've ever played. I truly mean that. It was hard to put down, and I ended up playing it well past beating the game. I actually tried to 100% it just for fun, which I never do, but ended up giving up, which is way more my style. Instead, I decided to go back and play through all of the other Metroid games just for the small amount of story and to experience them in order. That doesn't sum up the effect that this one game had on me. I don't know what would.